What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be analyzing the Warriors' potential next year and whether or not I believe that they could be a title contender in the Western Conference. So we're going to start off by going over the Warriors' schedule. As most basketball fans know, the Warriors lost a close game to the Memphis Grizzlies, which eliminated them from playoff contention or being in the playoffs. This game was in overtime, and overall, I think the Grizzlies just outperformed the Warriors, although both teams played pretty well. The Warriors just couldn't keep Ja Morant um, from scoring the basketball, and even though he's not normally a three-point shooter, he actually had a pretty good game scoring, which is surprising from beyond the arc. Grizzlies did have Grayson Allen back, who I think they did not have in the first game of the play-in tournament, so that was interesting to see. But for the Warriors, Wiggins had 22 and 10, Draymond had a triple-double, Curry had almost 40, Poole had almost 20. It's just I think that they lack depth. As you can see, they played a 8-man rotation instead of like the Grizzlies, who, although it was kind of thin with Melton and Jones, did play a 10-man rotation, which, although it's very light, you can see with Melton and Tyus Jones playing a combined 17 minutes and Jaren actually only playing 15. It's just the starters that actually outperform the Warriors overall and on the offensive end, I'd say. Although the Warriors were able to score at will, it was more of an offensive battle. But what I really want to look at is the Warriors' loss to the Lakers. Now, in this game, it was very similar to how the Grizzlies game played out, except the one difference maker was Draymond's lack of scoring. I think the Lakers did a really good job to keep him intact. Although he did get his 8 assists and 9 rebounds, he only had 2 points. One interesting thing, though, is Wiggins did have 21. Curry had almost the exact same amount. Poole, I think, was that difference maker, though. Him only scoring 10 points really hurt the team. As you can see, it was like extremely top heavy with Curry with 37 and then Wiggins with 21. And then your next highest scorer is Poole and Bazemore with 10 apiece, which you really can't have if you're trying to compete for a title. You have to have those guys that are going to consistently score points, but also have the ability, like Poole does, to go off for 40 or 30 on any given night. I just think the Warriors have those guys in place, but I don't think they're consistent enough at this point in time. But one thing that I do want to look at is their roster. Now, something that I do really like is the amount of shooting that they do have on the entire roster. James Wiseman will be back and hopefully healthy next season, which should allow him to be their starting center, sitting next to Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, who will hopefully be healthy, and Steph Curry. Now, I think that starting five is a phenomenal starting five, and it's probably one of the top, I would say roughly in the top 3, just because of how good every position is. Curry is probably the best point guard in the NBA. I don't think many people are going to debate that. Klay, when fully healthy, is a top 10 shooting guard in the league. Wiggins can play that role where I don't think he's one of the top, 10 small forwards in the league, but he is in the upper, top 15, I'd say. And then Draymond, although he's not offensively in the top or even anywhere near that, overall, I think he is probably a closer to like almost top 10 on the outside looking in of all power forwards. And that could be, debated with stats. But I think just overall how much he brings to the team, I think Draymond's one of the best power forwards in the league. And then Wiseman's shown on the defensive end how good he is. Although he really hurt them, they were better when they were without him defensively. I think he'll start to improve on that. But the one thing I want to focus on is the bench depth. The Warriors are going to have Jordan Poole up there as the 6th man, along with Juan Toscano-Anderson, Eric Paschall, Kelly Oubre. Maybe you throw in a little Kevon Looney or Kent Bazemore. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a trade. They've got a lot of players that could help a team like Damian Lee. Jordan Bell could possibly get in there. But I think there's a lot of players on this team that could be moved. Maybe if you move a Kevon Looney and somebody like Damian Lee and get a better backup big, I think that would really help the team. You can get a true big center. I think that would really help this Warriors team that does lack size. Draymond is your power forward, and he's in the like 6'7" range. Wiseman's that big center, but he can't play the entire game. But I think this team has a lot of depth. Now I want to go over their future picks. The Warriors this year have Minnesota's first round pick. It is top 3 protected, but the pick is actually supposed to fall, or at least now it's projected out of the top 3, which means the Warriors would get that pick. They also have a second round pick from Minnesota, a second round pick from Toronto, and a second round pick from Charlotte, all in the future. The Minnesota pick is actually this year, but that's not really what's super important because the Warriors are in win now mode. They've got that Minnesota pick, which is huge. Let's just say it's a top 6 pick. Let's hope it falls out of the top 3, and it's going to be between roughly 3 and 7, I think. I'm not 100% sure on the odds, but that would be a really good pick to get a strong, I would even say big or combo guard on that team to help, and we'll go over that later. But in addition to the Minnesota pick, the Warriors pick is actually still theirs because they are projected in the top 20, and it was top 20 protected, which means the Warriors would retain their pick, meaning they're going to have a late lottery pick, probably in the 13 or 14 range, in addition to that Minnesota top, let's just say 7 pick, which is very big for a team that's in a win now mode. Getting 2 picks in the lottery is really helpful, especially one as high up as that Minnesota pick is projected to be if they end up getting it. But I want to go over a mock draft kind of simulator. I think this will give my input on, other teams as well. I think Cade Cunningham is the consensus number 1 pick to the Rockets. I don't even think it matters who's picking there, even if the Rockets aren't. I think they are going to take Cade Cunningham. Second with Evan Mobley. I think that's a really good pick. Now, 4th is a tough decision for the Magic. They've got 2 really good point guards. They've got 3 even, with R.J. Hampton, Cole Anthony, and Markelle Fultz, who will be returning from injury. I think this is a place where they'll go big. I think somebody like Jonathan Kuminga is a really good fit for them. He can play that small forward role after Aaron Gordon was traded away and they got rid of Vucevic, but instead they got Wendell Carter, so I don't think they need a center. I think Kuminga to play the wing, or maybe Keon Johnson, a little undersized. I think those are probably the picks. I could even say Jalen Green. I just don't know if they'd end up taking him. I'm going to go Kuminga, just because I think that's the better fit. Now, the Cavaliers are pretty complete, I would say, in my opinion. You've got a good point guard in Darius Garland. You've got a good shooting guard in Colin Sexton. You just drafted Isaac Okoro last year with the 5th pick. So there's your point guard, shooting guard, small forward. Maybe you have a little bit of questions at power forward. Is Larry Nance or Kevin Love the future? No, I don't think so. And then we know Jarrett Allen is in there at center for the time being, and I think he's going to be there for the future. I think the pick here would actually be Jalen Johnson for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think he can play that power forward role. He's shown that he's good at getting rebounds. He can't really score. At least he didn't prove that he could at Duke. I think that's going to be the pick for the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? Yeah. Now, with the 5th pick, this is a tougher question. I believe Shai is going to play the point. I think this would be a tough decision between Jalen Green and Jalen Suggs, the 2 Jalens. I think it'd end up coming down to one of those 2. I think Suggs plays more of a point guard role where Green's a natural scorer, and I don't know which is better for Shai. I think he can really play everything, so they'd want a guy that could possibly be that off-ball scorer, which is why I think they would take Jalen Green. And now we have our pick with the Warriors. Now, this isn't guaranteed to be this way, but at this moment, we have Jalen Suggs, Keon Johnson, Davion Mitchell, Franz Wagner, and Scotty Barnes on our draft board, at least as the top 10 prospects. I don't think Isaiah Jackson would be the fit because he is a very raw player. I think Corey Kispert could be that guy to fit the Warriors' scheme as a catch-and-shoot type of player to possibly take over for Klay Thompson. But I actually think a better fit for the Warriors would be Josh Giddey. Now, this is a 6'8" shooting guard. He reminds me of Luka Doncic a lot, just not as he's not as able to score at will. I do think though that he is a guy that he's like a triple double machine in Australia, where he's been getting them on the regular. I think he's the type of player that could fit very nicely for this Warriors team off the bench, maybe playing that point guard role. Because as we look at it here, and this is based off of cap, I think, or contract, we have our starting point guard in Steph Curry, starting shooting guard in Klay Thompson, small forward in Wiggins, power forward in Draymond, and then our center in James Wiseman. We already have Oubre off the bench. We have Poole off the bench. I don't think Bazemore is a lock. I think Pascal is a lock. I think he's a really good player. So we have 3 players off the bench, possibly Kevon Looney, possibly Kent Bazemore, but I think we have 2 roles to fill. And as we talked about, it's a backup big, or it's possibly that wing off the bench. I think Kispert would be a really good fit here. I do also think Franz Wagner would be a good fit for the defensive side of the ball because this Warriors team is not as good defensively. I think for me, it would come down to Franz Wagner, Corey Kispert, or Josh Giddey. Although Suggs is there, I just don't think he's a good enough fit with how well Jordan Poole has shown that he can play. I don't think they really need him at this point in time, although he is a really good player. I do believe Wagner has a higher ceiling, and they're projecting him higher, which is why I think the Warriors would end up drafting Franz Wagner, and I think that's a really good pick for the Golden State Warriors. Now, I want to see if I can skip ahead and auto pick. There we go. We're going to move up to our next pick, which said that it was 14th, and here we are at pick 14 with Corey Kispert and Josh Giddey still on the board, which is really nice to see. I think at this point in time, you've already gotten that small forward. I don't know who it would come down to. Possibly a big in Usman Garuba maybe, or Kai Jones, who really progressed well in his second season at Texas. I'm not 100% sure who the Warriors would end up going with. Dosumu here at 14th I think is a little bit of a reach. I think that Kispert is the best fit for the team based off of his shooting ability, but I think they would end up going with another big in Usman Garuba just because of how severe, as it says here, their center position is. But Garuba isn't even tall enough, really, if you think about it, to play that center role. He's more of a power forward. I think they might end up going Kai Jones, and that's who I'm going to take with the 14th pick for the Golden State Warriors. Now, that's basically what I think we could end up having. If you look back, we ended up getting Kai Jones to play our backup big, as well as Franz Wagner to play our wing, and he could play that big role, maybe a power forward off the bench. So our new and improved lineup, if we wanted to look at maybe the leaders for this Golden State Warriors team, it would look somewhere along the line of Stephen Curry. Then we have Klay Thompson. Then we have Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, followed by James Wiseman to end out the starting 5. I don't know if they're going to re-sign Oubre. There's been some discussion there that they're not like mutual partners to re-sign in the offseason. I'm just going to think about at this time that they would. So that means our bench would end up being something along the lines of Kelly Oubre Jr., Eric Pascal, Franz Wagner, Jordan Poole, and Kai Jones, which would give us a 10-man rotation, which we talked about in the loss to the Memphis Grizzlies, the Warriors' lack of depth. I think that would really help this team. I think getting rid of players like Michael Mulder, Juan Toscano-Anderson could be that guy that fills his role when needed, that hustle player. I think that would really help this Warriors team in the next season, and that would help them become a title contender. Let me know down in the comments below if you think those were good draft picks, and do you think the Warriors have a chance next season? I really think they do with Klay Thompson returning from injury, as well as 2 top lottery picks. I think that they could be a contender next year in the West, and as a finals team that could win it. So let me know in the comments down below again. Do you think those draft picks were any good, or do you think they'd be good fits? And thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed and consider subscribing.